Okay, another update with the Corsair. I've got her on the stand. Remember the brass rod and the steel rod? Well, I took and drilled a hole. That brass rod is press fitted in. I used a drill bit that was a little bit smaller in the brass rod. Then I took a rubber mallet and press fitted that brass rod in there. It didn't come out, not easily. Here I drilled a hole in the base of the Corsair and I super glued that steel rod in. So she is mounted in there fairly well. It doesn't feel all the greatest to me. It would have been better if I had drilled a hole in the top of the Corsair for that rod to go in. It'd be mounted in a little bit better. But, you know, as long as we don't have any little kids flying her around the house, I think she'll be okay. Another update, let me get her back on the stand, is it took me a little bit more work than I'd like to get this to fit on there in an acceptable way. If it fit on there now, it does. It fits on there fairly well. Okay, let me turn it so you guys can see inside the cockpit a little bit. You will be able to see that I put an instrument panel in there just fine. And you'll be able to see some of the back detail on there just fine as well. And I know you're going to be able to see that pilot in there. So I'll be back once I get the canopy masked up, glued on, and the pilot's glued in. Well, I couldn't resist. I had to put the pilot in there and see what he looked like with the windshield on. You're going to be able to see him just fine. So I think it was worth all the extra effort I did on that cockpit because it makes the model look just that much better. It doesn't look so cheesy and dorky anymore. Okay? Well, that windshield's not glued on yet. I need to glue it on. I'm going to have to do a little bit of seam filling around it once it's glued on. I just wanted to show everyone what it looks like. The pilot is glued in now. I used some good old Loctite super glue. I like that stuff because unlike the cheap dollar store super glue, I get to use dang near the whole bottle. So I pay a little bit more. There's more in there, and I get to use it all. It doesn't dry quite as fast either, which sometimes is an advantage, especially if you get it on your fingers. Well, there you go. There's a shot of her with the pilot. Quick Corsair update. Canopy has been taped. I dipped it in Future after taping it to seal that tape down so that I don't have any paint leaks underneath the tape. I've got all the weapon racks put on the Corsair. The only parts I have left to do on her is the rester hook on the bottom and glue the canopy on. And the weapons on the racks themselves. The weapons are going to go on after painting simply because I'm going to paint them a light gray or a dark gray, and they're not going to match the paint scheme of the airplane itself. So they're getting painted last. The big, droppable fuel tanks that go on the side are getting painted the same color as one of the camo colors, but I'm not going to attach them on here first, mainly because that is going to be a royal pain to deal with painting. I put the weapon racks on here though because they need to be painted up the same color as the airplane itself. So they're on there for that reason alone. So there we go. Quick update. You can see the pilot's in there. You can see what I did with the cockpit if I set it down and let the camera focus. Okay, I'm about to put on the heads-up display. I'm going to save that because I want to make sure there's room for it under the canopy, but there should be. Well, there we go. That's an update. Corsair update. We have the first color coat on her. Wasn't put down 100% evenly. I wasn't looking and paying attention. And up here under the wing and on this weapon mount, you can see it's a little bit lighter than the rest of the model. But what I'm happy with is there are no real seam lines on this model. And that is an accomplishment for me, a major accomplishment. Let me pull her off the stand so I can turn her over. Now, the landing gear doors, I did have some issues with, but I think they're going to come out looking fine on this. If you look real closely, yes, you can see a seam line right there, and that probably happened because of the stress of drilling the hole for the landing gear doors. I mean, for the
mounting rod. That probably happened due to that fact. I'm not going to worry about that a little too much. I'm not going to go back and fix this. There's a contest coming up I want to enter, and I got to have this done before that contest. So I'm under a deadline. I've got less than 2 weeks to finish this model in. The thing that's concerning me, and I'm going to put her back on the stand for this so I'm not holding her and moving her around a whole heck of a lot. And you'll be able to see it just fine if I zoom in. The thing that's concerning me is I didn't quite get that canopy to sit down correctly when I did my modifications to the inside, and you can see a little bit of a seam line around the edge. I'm going to go look at my photos. If my reference photos show that line is there, I'm going to leave it. I know when I was test fitting the model, you wouldn't see that line before I did my mods to the interior. So let me go look at my reference photos. If that line is supposed to be there, then I'm not going to mess with it. If not, I'm going to get rid of it. I'm going to get out some Aves epoxy sculpt and try some seam filling that way. That'll be a first for me. This model was supposed to be about experimenting with different colors of paint and camo techniques. If that seam is supposed to be there, I'm going to leave it, and I'm going to get out some super silly putty and start painting camo. Well, I'm going to fix up this brown coat, and then I can start painting camo later this week. Now for the base, let me zoom out. I did something silly. Well, it depends on who you are whether I did something silly or not, and I bought a vinyl cutter. Part of the reasons why I bought a vinyl cutter is that at my job, I can use it. I contacted a sign company. They wanted close to $200 to come out and redo the signage on the front of my store. And well, the vinyl cutter was a consumer grade. It's not a pro grade. It's not for someone who does vinyl cutting 24/7. It's more of a paper cutter slash vinyl cutter for people who do scrapbooks and want to just put things on their wall. It isn't going to handle a whole lot of vinyl cutting, but it was $200. So it was almost the same price as what the sign company wanted. So I went out and bought the thing, and I'm going to go ahead and use it for model work. I'm going to use it to make paint masks and things like that. I'm going to take the vinyl cutter as my first piece of vinyl. I'm going to make a Corsair in black vinyl, put it down on the base, and then varnish over the base to seal it in. I think that'll look nice. It'll give me a chance to try out the vinyl cutter and see how well it works. So that's what's up for the base. Anyhow, she's close to done. I can't tell you how happy that makes me. Okay, went and looked at my reference photos and found that no, that gap is not under the windshield. I suspected as much. There was a small gap in the back of the canopy, but not in the front where I had it. That's because the back raises up and opens, the front doesn't. Go figure. So I got out the Aves epoxy sculpt. First time to try it on a model. I've played with it before, just trying to mold some things for the Scale Model Addict contest last spring. But I never tried it for seam filling on a model. That went very well in my opinion. It went on there pretty easily. Okay. What you do with Aves epoxy sculpt is it comes in 2 tubs. So let me get the Corsair out of the way. It comes in these 2 tubs. Okay. You take equal parts, because it's an epoxy, and mix them together. And then after some suggestions from one guy, I let it sit about 30-45 minutes and then started working with it, and it was just like molding clay. I just put it on there, used a little water to smooth the surface, and it went on there very, very well. So I'm going to let this sit for at least 48 hours, because I won't be able to touch it tomorrow at all. I'm pulling the 12-hour at work. And after 48 hours, I'm going to try to sand it smooth. I might have to hit it with a teeny bit of Mr. Surfacer to get my fingerprints out of it. We will see. But I'm happy with the Aves epoxy sculpt so far. I might start trying to use it to fill small little, bad seams like I've faced before. It might be easier to work with than that old putty I've been using. I know, some of you have been telling me this. But see, I can listen. I can learn new tricks. I might be an old dog, but I can learn new tricks. Well, there you go. Thanks for watching.